In Jesus we pray. Amen. Okay, as I've talked to the people here earlier, the ones online I didn't talk to you. Sorry, I didn't have my mic on. We are in Mark 13 like we were last week, just reviewing it. And then we'll move over to Matthew 24 next, if you've got your Bibles. Mark, you remember we started out with Jesus was looking at that Jesus' disciples was looking at the temple and the buildings around it, and he tells them that all these will be thrown down, these blocks will be thrown down off of here. And then they ask him a question. Tell us, when will these things happen? They know Jesus. He may not give them a straight answer probably about that, because he's not going to tell them the moment in time things are going to happen. He says, okay, then they say, what will be the sign that all the above, all about to be fulfilled? In other words, what's a sign of it happening? And we head on down, and he watches through 5 and 9, and he tells the disciples to be careful, and you're going to get, there's going to be bad times. Going to have kingdom against kingdom, and be on your guard, because, you get handed over to the guys in the synagogue, and they're going to whip you, and yes, all that happened. They stood up before leaders and testified, and the gospel must first be preached to all nations. He threw that in there. That's kind of interesting. Then he moved on down. Brother will betray brother, and friend will betray friend, and he moves on down there through it. And then we talked about the abomination that's talked about in Daniel. Ooh, my thing ain't working this morning. Come on. Okay, anyway, about the abomination and the destruction of the temple, and talks about everybody being the elect might get swayed by some of these prophets and Jesus spakers that come. And then we get on down here, and so be on your guard. I have told you everything ahead of time. He's told his disciples, which are having a conversation about what's going to happen to them ahead of time. And then we go into those days following the distress, and we talk about the Son of Man coming in the clouds and sending his angels for his elect. And then we drop on down. I do not know, did we get to the day and hour unknown? Did we get to that? I thought we did.
Is that where those stars?
The stars in his hand?
Yeah.
Oh, I talked about that back in when we were talking about the sun and the moon and the stars falling from the sky, and you look back in Revelations, and what does a star mean in Revelations? Well, he tells you right to begin with in the first chapter that Jesus says, I hold the 7 stars in my hands. And I tell you what they are. They're the 7 angels of the churches that he's talking about in that chapter. This is something to go along with the Bible. You have to get used to. What is the gnashing and weeping? We know there's certain things in the Bible, when we read that means that we're going to hell. It's hell. Weeping and gnashing of teeth, you know that one? Okay, certain things in the Bible, when we read that, it's not saying we're going to hell, but we know that. So they were representational of hell. This is a representation. When you see it, it means hell. Well, he's telling me that when stars mean angels. So when I read them falling out of the sky, I go, well, stars can't fall out of the sky in my world, because stars are way bigger than this world. He means the angels coming down. And we have shooting stars, right? So why wouldn't have those people back years ago say, well, he says the angel, or coming down. Well, those look like, wow, streaks of light, and they're all bright and shiny. They might have called them a shooting star or a star. You got to remember, a lot of stuff was given to some humans and to write down, and they wrote it down the best they could. Yes.
So the stars are angels?
Yes. In the last book, they're considered the angels, and a lot of people take and look through to decide what's going on in that last book. The last book is very uses other things. The devil is a dragon in the last book, and you could go on. There's a story in the last book about a birth, and the dragon's there. Well, does it not imagine you that at Jesus' birth, would there not been the devil looking over that birth and saying, wow, look there, I want to do something about this. He's doing something. So would he have not been, maybe not right at the birth, but at least close, keeping an eye on it? Possibly, yes. And maybe that's part of what that's talking about. The last book in the Bible is a lot of stories. And the earth dies, I think, over 7 times in the last book. Remember, the last book is another book. Yes, it has prophecy in it, but almost all books in the Bible have some form of prophecy in them. Even the beginning, when you bruise the heel you're talking about, you know that one. That's prophecy. Okay, look at the Jews. They're sitting here not believing in Jesus, most of them, a lot of them. They're coming around, I've understood, but they're waiting on Elijah to come. Why? Because there's a sentence or two in the last book of the Old Testament that talks about Elijah coming. So, you've got to remember, little things mean a lot in the Bible. But sometimes some people take little things and put them together with other little things that absolutely do not prove themselves other places. Things have to prove themselves more than one place in the Bible. It'll be talked about more than one place. Most things are talked about more than one place in the Bible. And you've got to reference those to understand it completely, generally. Okay, the day and the hour. I'm not sure I read completely through that, but we'll talk about it. But the day and the hour is unknown. The angels, the Son, the Father, none of them know that. Just the Father. None of them know that, just the Father. So when people say, hey, he's coming, have we heard that a few times in our lifespan even? I watched a show about it, and they put numbers together, and they had it back in the 30s, and it didn't happen. They were kind of like, And I know Phil talks about, he's got a shelf of books about it. People wrote books about why he was going to come in this date. So, yeah, it's not up to us to know. I read the Bible and I know there's something there, but only He can show me that through the Holy Spirit. So, we'll move on down through there. I'm pretty sure I finished this. Let's see. You'll know the time and date. This was the man going away. Let's see. Did we read any more of this? So just keep watch, basically. And that's how he ends it. I say to you, to everyone, watch. Be ready. That's the basic thing. We have to follow God and stay faithful to Him. I hear something coming up the stairway. Maybe Sunday school starting. Okay, we'll jump over to Matthew 24. There's more story there to talk about. We didn't talk about last week. Come on. Matthew. Don't you love electronics? If you bump it, it does the other opposite thing you want it to do. And I did so good with it last time. Oh, you silly thing. Well, that's okay. We'll get it. There we go. Matthew 24. And it's about the destruction of the temple. Similar start to it. Very similar. He says, do you see all these things? Truly I tell you, not one stone here will be left on another. Every one will be thrown down. What do you mean by thrown down? What's still left there? A great big platform, huge stones. And there's a mosque built on it, if I remember right. But all the stones were thrown off the side of that platform down into piles. It was a fairly tall platform. You've seen the worship wall along the bottom of it where the Jews worship on TV a lot. Then they ask him questions about that. Well, tell us when this will happen. And he goes, oh, tell us when this will happen. Same question. And what will be the sign of your coming and the end of ages? Close to the same question. It's close. And Jesus starts out, watch out what that, no, I'm not doing too good this morning. Watch out what not one deceives you. For many will come in my name, claiming I am the Messiah, and will deceive many. You will hear of wars and rumors of wars, but see to it that you are not alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Nation will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famine and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of birth pains. We've heard that, right? Real similar last week. Then you will be handed over to be persecuted and put to death, and you will be hated by all nations because of me. At that time, many will turn away from the faith and will betray and hate each other. In other words, a lot are going to turn away from the faith at that time when it starts persecuting you and talking bad about your faith. Do our kids get into that? Oh, yeah. Don't they? And they get talked about, well, I went to church and whatnot. Well, they're getting kind of persecuted in their own way. They talked about them coming back from NYR and going out into this world. And this world does not teach faith. This world teaches we're in charge. You can do what you want to do. You are your own person. Yeah, I went off on a squirrel, didn't I? Anyway, we'll continue on. Then you will be handed over to be persecuted and put to death, and you will be hated by all nations because of me. I read that, sorry. All that time will turn away from the faith and will betray and hate each other. And many false prophets will appear and deceive many people because of the increase of wickedness. The love of most will grow cold. But the one who stands firm to the end will be saved. And that's what we're trying to do. run the good race. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. There's where a lot of people get that. It's got to be preached to the whole world first, and then the end will come. Similar to the one we read last week, right? They mentioned that in last week. It must be preached to the whole world. So this is a very similar reading as to last week. But it has some things. Okay. So then you standing in the holy place. So when you see standing in the holy place the abomination that causes desolation, spoken of through the prophet David, it says here through the prophet David, instead of having to look it up, let the reader understand. Okay, we're talking about 70 AD again, the desolation of the temple, the end of the holy place, the end of the worship, end of the sacrifice. That would have been bad for the Jews because they thought that was, well, they didn't think, that was where God sat on the mercy seat. He would come sit on the mercy seat. And let those who are in Judah flee to the mountains. We're not in Judah. Let no one on the housetop go down to take anything out of the house. Let no one in the field go back to get their cloak. He's talking about the Romans coming. And the Romans dispersed them in that 70 AD. They tore down the temple and they dispersed them, just same as they got dispersed before. They got moved. A lot of them got moved away. And that's what we're talking about here. How dreadful it will be in those days for pregnant women and nursing mothers. There's that. Pray that your flight will not take in winter or on the Sabbath, similar, for there then will be great distress, unequaled from the beginning of the world until now, and never to be equaled again. Well, as I talked last week, they put them up on stakes and dipped them in tar and burn them to light Rome, Christians. Put them in the arena, sacrificed them to lions, made them fight. Not good days for them. If those days had not been cut short, not one would survive. Who's he talking about survive? Yeah, Christians would not have survived. And probably Jews. At that time, if anyone says to you, look, here is the Messiah, or there he is, do not believe. For false messiahs and false prophets all appear and perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. See, I have told you ahead of time. He's telling this to his disciples. He told that ahead of time to the disciples. And it will be pointed out when we drop back into Luke, it's pointed out quite clearly that we're talking about the period of time up until they die at this point in time. And then we're talking about the Jews on from there. Because see, this is a break. This is the end of their lives, and we're going to move on. This has a small interlude here between there and Christ coming and the end of the apostles, but that small interlude is where we are right now. Jesus didn't tell us our future. He was talking to the disciples. As if anyone tells you There he is out in the wilderness. I think of Jim Jones when I think of this in Jonestown. Do not go out. Or he is in the inner room. Do not believe it. For as lightning that comes from the east is visible even in the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. Wherever there is a carcass, there will be vultures will gather. Yeah, that's in a couple spots. I haven't really pushed that thought, but that's an interesting tale there. And, immediately after the distress of these days, the sun will be darkened and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky and the heavenly bodies will be shaken. And then the Son of Man comes. Then will appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then all the people of the earth will mourn when they see the Son of Man coming on the clouds in heaven. Why would they mourn? Will we mourn because it's the end of this world and we want to hold on to this world? Because there's things about this world some people wouldn't want to leave. Do you want to give your house up? Do you want to give your family up? You want things to change? Some people don't want to go in the end. Do they want to die in the end? A lot of people hold on to life like it's a valuable thing. And it is a valuable thing. Life is valuable. And we are valuable to God. But also, I look forward to the times that I can live with God. Okay. Coming on the clouds with power and great glory, and he will send his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather all his elect from the four winds. Four winds. Four is a number acquainted with the earth. You will find numbers in the Bible, 12 disciples, 12 tribes. Certain things are in numbers. Numbers kind of have a weight to them. They have a meaning to them. They don't just mean four. They mean something else. And you read Revelations, numbers mean things. They don't so much, they're acquainted with something. Four winds, four corners of the earth. Four is always equated with earth things. From one end of the heavens to the other. So we heard that story again. Now learn this lesson from the fig tree. We're back to that. And when they get leaves, summer's coming. Need to learn that one, Kathy, if you want to know when the end's going to happen. If you can figure that one out, you'll know. But I bet the riddle's easy, but we're not going to know it until we get with Jesus. It's kind of hindsight. Even so, when you see all these things, you know that it is near, right at hand, at the door. Truly I tell you, this generation will certainly not pass away until all these things have happened. There's that generation I talked about last week, if you can figure out exactly what generation means. I kind of think it means humanity. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. And then we go down to the day and hour. Now this is where Matthew's different from Luke. Day and hour, but about that day and hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven or the Son, but only the Father. This is why in the days of Noah, well, let's define what days of Noah is. In the days of Noah, my days are 1957 until I die. Some people take it literally that way, that this is talking about The days of Noah. What happened entirely in the days of Noah? I have seen a study on that. That is interesting. So it will be the coming of the Son of Man. And in that statement, he says, the days of Noah will be like in the Son of Man. Okay. For in the days before the flood, people were eating, drinking, marrying, giving marriage up to the day Noah entered the ark. And they knew not about what would happen until the flood came and took them all away. That is how it will be at the coming of the Son of Man. Here, 2 men will be in the field. One will be taken and the other left. 2 women will be grinding with a hand mill. One will be taken and one will be left, and the other left. So, who leaves first, the righteous or the unrighteous? A question to think about. A question to think about. We'll come back to it. And while I'm asking, I'll ask another question. Why would we be taken up into the clouds when Jesus came back? And I'll add a little to that. In Acts 1, they say he'll return in the same way. He's returning in the same way, but we're going to be taken up in the clouds with him. Think about that. Let's see. One more to think about. Do you think there'll be people to try to hold on to life and want to hold on to this world we live in and won't go with the angels and get to see Jesus? Think about that one. There's your 3 questions. We'll talk about them later. Therefore, keep watch. Oops. Oh, yeah, I already did that. Therefore, keep watch, because you do not know on what day your Lord will come. But understand this, if the owner of a house had known at what time or night the thief was coming, he would have kept watch and would not have let his house be broken into. So you also must be ready, because the Son of Man will come at an hour when you do not expect him. So he's talking about, I can go out on carousing on Saturday night and do everything that I shouldn't be doing, and then I come back on Sunday and I'm going to profess my sins and then I'm okay. Well, what if he comes in between? Those sins are outstanding at that time. It'll be up to God at that time. I have to leave everything up to God, because ultimately he's the one that's going to decide. And that's what he's talking about there. Is it hot in here, or is it just me? I think. Somebody turn the fans on, would they? Might be just me. Nerves. You know how that goes. I don't normally do this. Who then is the faithful and wise servant whom the master has put in charge of the servants in his house, to give them their food at proper time? Oh, be careful, you're on the camera. No, I'm teasing. Hello, everybody out there in internet land. I'm sorry, I don't remember to say hi. It will be good for that servant whose master finds him doing so when he returns. But it will not be good for the one that decides to go be drunkenness. Anyway, truly I tell you, he will put him in charge of all his possessions. But suppose that servant is wicked and says to himself, my master is staying away a long time. And he then begins to beat his fellow servants and to eat and drink with, you got him going, thank you, with drunkenness. Okay, so the master is going to show up. The master of the servant will come on a day when he does not expect him and at an hour he is not aware of. He will cut him to pieces and assign him to a place with the hypocrites where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And weeping and gnashing of teeth is equal to hell. That's what I'm talking about. Certain things in the Bible mean certain things, but they're not exactly those things, like stars and angels aren't exactly the same, but in the book, you got to know how to read it. Now, we're going to move back to, hopefully I have better luck clicking. I know what I'm going to do. I'll get this out. Okay, we're going to move back to Luke 21 and look at it. And we'll drop down to, I'll start out about 7 or 6. And he tells them all these stones are going to be thrown down in 6. And they ask the same questions, similar questions. When will these things happen? And what will be the sign that they are about to happen? Same questions. So we're similar up until this point of all the others. There are some differences to this one. He replied, watch out that they don't deceive you, in 8, and there will be wars, you'll hear of wars and rumors of wars, in 9, and that's real similar, right? And these things will happen, and the end will then come, or come later. Then he said to them, nations will rise against nations and kingdoms, in 10 against kingdoms. Then there are earthquakes and plagues and various plagues, and similar to what we already had read, right? But then he jumps out and says, but before all this happens, they're going to seize you, and they're going to be whipped in the synagogues, and the same stuff we just went through. And then your sister and their family's all going to betray each other to show how some died and were portrayed. Everyone will hate you because of me, but not a hair on your head will perish. Stand firm, and you will win life. He's telling them, his disciples, stand firm during that period of time. So that's going to happen first, but the other is going to happen afterwards, is what he tells you. Okay, when you see Jerusalem being surrounded by armies, you will know that this desolation is near. Calls it desolation. Then let those who are in Judah flee to the mountains. Let those in the city get out, and let those in the country not enter the city. Sounds a lot like the temple's going to get taken care of in 70 AD, and the Romans are going to start throwing people out of the country. Similar to what we read before, but in a little different format. For this is the time of punishment in fulfillment of all that has been written. Daniel. How deadly it will be to those with pregnant women and nursing mothers. They will be great distress in the land and wrath against this people. talking about the Jews, they will fall by the sword. Shows how a lot of them are going to die, and will be taken as prisoners to all the nations. In other words, scattered. The Jews are scattered. Jerusalem will be trampled on by the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. So, all this about nation against nation and all this down through, he's talking about the Jews. So let's back up and look at what we just read in Mark and Matthew. He was talking about the Jews. Because the next thing here is, there will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars on the earth. Nations will be in anger, anguish, and perplexity to the roaring and tossing of the sea. People will faint of terror. I can't get that way. Of what is coming on the world, of the heavenly bodies will be shaken at that time. They will see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with power and great glory. Oh, that sounds a lot like what we read in the other. He's coming back. So he's talking to the Jews here to begin with. He talks to the Jews until we get to this. And he's still talking to the Jews about him coming back. So this isn't about us. It's not about a time that we're going to go through. It's about the Jews, is what he talks about. So some people take and go back to the other scriptures and take some of that and move it to the end of time. No, I don't think it's the end of the time. Yes, it runs to the end of the time, but it's about the Jews.
You don't think this is about all of us as Christians too in this?
I think it's about the Jews. I think it's about the Jews. But because, look at the end of it. It says, look where I read that it is the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles are fulfilled. Now, if you read about the time of the Gentiles being fulfilled and you go into Romans, he's talking about the ones that come to Jesus and into the new church until they're fulfilled. And in Romans, he believes that we're just waiting till that time happens, when we get the full number of righteous come in from the Gentiles, and then Jesus will come back. And all the world just hears the word. So that's the two things we're waiting to be fulfilled. And then he'll come back. So I know it's taking it there, but if I read that and I go, wow, that's in Romans. That's definitely what it says in Romans about the fulfilling of the time of the Gentiles. And are we still trampling on Jerusalem? Yeah, they're still having trouble with rocket attacks and you name it. Peace there means, it's getting close to time. It talks in the last book about wars there and a last war and whatnot. Yeah, that might be, but there's wars and rumors of wars I read right here. So when he comes back, he's going to come back in power of, it's all his. He's doing away with, I will read something else to you and you'll have an interesting thought on what happens to all the evil and the evil people in the world. I will get to it next. Okay. Be always on your watch to pray. Okay. Heaven and earth pass away, but because of your hearts will be weighted down with cruising, I can't spit it out this morning, and drunkenness, and the next be of life, just here, life, and that day will close on you suddenly like a trap. For it will come on all those who live on the face of the whole earth. In other words, Jesus isn't just going to come here in the clouds. He'll come all the way around the earth. We will see, everyone in the earth will see that. It's going to be a one and inclusive event. It talks about the ocean blumping up and down and all sorts of things. It's going to be a big thing. We won't miss that. Okay. It says, be always on watch and pray that you will be able to escape all that is about to happen. In other words, you need to pray that you can hold steady to God, that you may be able to stand before the Son of Man. That's what we're looking forward to, standing before the Son of Man. And the end just tells about him going to the temple. We're going to move over and read. How am I doing on time? I'm way past. Okay. There's another story I was going to read in Luke 17. You can read it yourself, but it has the same story of the same story Matthew had of Noah's days, but they add another story of Sodom and Gomorrah. And I'll just quickly go through those, because I'm not going to be here next week. It'll probably be somebody else. Okay, let's see. Lot. Okay, Sodom and Gomorrah. Remember when Lot left and it rains fire and brimstone on them? Well, he equates his coming with that too. He equates it with, as soon as he left, fire and brimstone rained down on the house, on the town, and destroyed them all. So as soon as Noah got in the ark, they all died. Same there, as he left. But what did his wife do? His wife turned around to look back and turned into a pillar of salt. He equates... Huh? No, Lot. Yeah. Lot wife. She turned around to look back. He's telling us not to look back, not to hold on to this world. Look forward to go to his world and see him, be in front of him. We can't hold on to this world. This world's dying. We will die. We can't hold on to this world. We can love who's here, and we hate to leave them, but we must go to him. So was there some of them that turned down going with the angels? Some of them will go turn down going with the angels because they want to stay here. I get that opinion out of that. And I better get done. I'll go over to I'm going to have to quit, but I'm going to give you something to read. Go over to Matthew 13, 24. It starts in 24. Matthew 13, 24. Why don't you read that this week? Matthew 13, 24. Read the parable of the weeds this week. And you're going to notice the weeds get gathered first. Then the weed is put away. And think about the question I gave you about who goes first. So read the parable of the weeds. Now keep in mind, the parable of the weeds, the explanation of it is just on down the page. He explains it to you. But read the parable of the weeds first, and you'll see that the weeds are gathered first to be burnt, and then the wheat is taken to the barn. So who goes first? I don't know, but I've heard a lot of people say that we're going to stay and the bad will disappear. I've heard it preached that way, and I've heard it talked the other way. But there you go. You got your assignment for the week. Thank you, everybody. And I won't be as stressed next week. No, I'm teasing. I did pretty good this week. I didn't really stress about this.
So Matthew 13, 14.
20, I think, wasn't it? Or 24? If you have any questions about it, you just talk to me. It's Matthew 13, 24 is the parable